She just did it again. And this time, she did not even try to hide it. Clarissa Shields, the two-time undisputed, the loudest voice in women's boxing, the woman who has spent the last 2 years telling anybody with a microphone that she does not think about Remy Ma, does not listen to Remy Ma, does not know Remy Ma's music, does not care what Remy Ma is doing, just posted a caption that came out of Remy Ma's mouth 72 hours ago on Angie Martinez's show, and she posted it like nobody was going to notice. Like the internet does not screenshot everything. Like there is not an entire timeline of receipts sitting right there for anybody who wants to look. And the reason this one hits different is because it is not about a hairstyle anymore. It is not about a pink fur. It is not about a red hair dye. It is not about copying an outfit from a photo shoot. This is her copying the actual words, the actual language, the actual internal identity that Remy Ma just publicly claimed for herself on the biggest radio platform in New York. That is a different level of obsession. That is not fashion inspiration. That is not admiration. That is somebody who has the interview open in one tab and is writing their own caption in the other tab and thinks nobody is smart enough to put the two side by side. And here is what I need you to understand before we go one sentence further into this. Everything the world has been told about this triangle between Clarissa, Remy, and Papoose has been framed around the wrong question. Everybody has been asking who won the man. Nobody has been asking why the woman who supposedly won is still, 3 days after Remy Ma sits down with Angie Martinez, rearranging her entire public identity around the language Remy used in that specific interview. When we get to the pattern breakdown later in this video, and I promise you we are getting there, you're going to see that this is not one post, this is not one caption, this is not one coincidence. This is a documented, time-stamped, receipts-in-hand behavior loop, and the timestamps are the thing that ends the argument. Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit like, and subscribe. Let's get into it. Alright, so for anybody who is just now walking into this saga, let me set the whole board for you so we are all standing in the same room before I start moving pieces around. Clarissa Shields is one of the most decorated women's boxers alive. Undisputed at multiple weight classes, Olympic gold, the whole resume. Remy Ma is one of the most respected and technically gifted female rappers in the history of New York hip-hop, Bronx-born, Terror Squad, the voice on some of the hardest verses that genre has ever produced. And a woman who very publicly went through a marriage with the rapper Papoose that lasted years, played out on love and hip-hop, was tattooed on his arm, was documented in songs, was documented in interviews, was documented in reality television for the entire culture to watch. That marriage ended. Papoose moved on. And the person he moved on with, according to everything that has been reported and everything both parties have said publicly, is Clarissa Shields. That is the setup. That is the surface. And on the surface, people move on all the time. That is life. That is grown people making grown decisions. And nobody in the culture was really going to hold that against anybody. The problem is not that Clarissa Shields is with Papoose. The problem is that from the moment Clarissa Shields became publicly linked to Papoose, her entire aesthetic, her entire wardrobe, her entire vocabulary, her entire posture on social media has started drifting closer and closer to a woman she claims she does not know, does not follow, does not listen to, and does not care about. And every time somebody points it out, she posts a smug little something about how everybody is pressed and everybody is obsessed, when in reality she is the one who cannot stop pulling from a specific woman's playbook. The stakes here are bigger than gossip. Musically, Remy Ma just walked into Angie Martinez's studio and dropped one of the most anticipated interview cycles she has done in years, previewing a new album, previewing new visuals, previewing a whole new era of her artistry. Culturally, this is about whether the woman who is very publicly cast as the villain in this triangle gets to walk out of it with her identity intact, or whether the identity gets copied piece by somebody who insists she is not paying attention. Financially, Clarissa Shields is in the middle of a training camp. She has a fight to sell. She has tickets that reportedly are not moving the way her camp needs them to move, and every time she has a chance to make it about her sport, she makes it about somebody else's life. And reputationally, this is the moment where the culture decides whether Clarissa Shields is a champion who happens to have main character energy, or a champion who cannot walk into a room without redecorating it to look like somebody else's. And the specific question sitting on the table right now, the one this entire video is going to answer, is simple. How does a woman who claims she does not listen to Remy Ma's music happen to caption her own photos with the exact phrase Remy Ma made the entire subject of a national radio interview 3 days earlier? Because there is only one answer, and that answer is not coincidence. Let me start with the post itself, because this is where the whole thing detonates. Within the last day, Clarissa Shields put up a carousel on her page. On the surface, at a glance, it looks like a standard glam post. Every chapter looks different. This one feels like the good life era, hashtag Clarissa Shields, hashtag good life. Welcome to the good life, I could sit pretty now. Hair by her stylist, makeup by her makeup artist, fine like wine. She is giving herself the compliments before anybody else can, which is a whole personality trait we could unpack for another video entirely. Your smile is your best curve. Never let anybody steal it, always looking forward. And then, buried in the middle of all of that, is the phrase that lit the whole thing on fire. Real soft girl. Good life, good views, good checks when I land. Real soft girl. That is the phrase. That is the flare in the sky. Because 3 days before Clarissa Shields typed the words real soft girl into her caption, Remy Ma sat down with Angie Martinez for a full-length interview, and the framing of that entire interview, from the thumbnail, to the title, to the opening exchange, was Remy Ma on her soft girl era. That is not me spinning it. That is not me interpreting it. That is the literal title of the video sitting on Angie Martinez's platform with tens of thousands of views. Remy Ma on her soft girl era. And inside that interview, Remy uses the phrase soft girl era, soft girl Remy, in my soft girl era, over and over and over again. She talks about how she is not opening her own doors anymore, she is not taking out garbage, she is not carrying anything heavier than a lip gloss and a credit card, she is showing up on time with curls in her hair, she is wearing a floral romper. She is on some Earl Grey tea with glitter under her skin type of energy. That is her whole opening. That is her whole thesis. Soft girl era, soft girl era, soft girl era. And Angie Martinez keeps repeating it back to her, I love this for you Rem, soft girl Rem, soft girl Remy has dancers, soft girl Remy has choreography, soft girl Rem is at Angie's barbecue. It is not a throwaway phrase in that interview. It is the entire brand identity Remy is rolling out for her next album cycle. So when Clarissa Shields, 3 days later, 72 hours later, posts a caption that says real soft girl, that is not a coincidence. That is not a general internet phrase floating in the water. That is a woman who watched the interview, took notes on the language, and tried to sprinkle it into her own post while pretending she had never heard it before. And this is not the first piece of surface evidence. This is just the most recent one. Because if you scroll back through the last year of Clarissa Shields' public presentation, the pattern is documented in photographs. Remy Ma wore a specific hairstyle, and shortly after, Clarissa Shields showed up in the same hairstyle. Remy Ma stepped out in a pink fur coat, and shortly after, Clarissa Shields stepped out in a pink fur coat. Not just a pink fur coat while photographed with Papoose, the same man Remy Ma wore her pink fur coat with. Remy Ma dyed her hair a specific shade of red, and Clarissa Shields showed up wanting the same red. Remy Ma's close friend and stylist collaborator Juju was photographed in a specific designer dress, and Clarissa Shields showed up in what has been widely described online as a cheaper version of that same dress. Piece by piece, garment by garment, color by color, hairstyle by hairstyle, this has been going on long enough that the internet has an entire folder on it. And the fourth piece of surface evidence, the one that ties this whole thing into a bow, is the vacation footage. Papoose and Clarissa Shields reportedly went to Aruba, and one of the images that came out of that trip is the two of them on horseback. Horseback. Which anybody who has watched a single season of Love and Hip Hop New York already knows was one of the signature couple moments between Papoose and Remy Ma when they were still married. On horseback. Same activity. Same partner. Different woman standing in the exact same photograph Remy Ma has already been in. That is not moving on. That is not building your own life. That is stepping directly into the outline of somebody else's life and standing where they used to stand. And each of these individual moments could be dismissed as coincidence by a generous person. But when you line them up in order, the hair, the fur, the red, the dress, the horse, the man, and now the soft girl caption, coincidence is no longer an available explanation. That is a pattern. And when the pattern is that consistent, that specific, and that recent, we are not looking at inspiration anymore. We are looking at reconstruction. And oh, do I have more? Because if you thought the soft girl caption was the loudest piece of this puzzle, wait until we get into what has been coming out of Clarissa Shields' actual mouth in her most recent interviews, because it is not just the pictures, it is not just the captions, it is the vocabulary itself. The lines she is delivering, the accent she is trying to slip into, the specific phrases that just happen to originate from Remy Ma songs. And I know some of Clarissa's fans are going to log into the comments right now and say I am reaching, and I am obsessing, and I am the one who is pressed, and to those people I say buckle in, because this next section is the one that is really going to hurt. Because when a champion of your caliber cannot get through a single press cycle without borrowing lines from a woman she claims she does not listen to, we are not in the realm of inspiration anymore. We are in the realm of identity theft. Stand with me for the next 10 minutes and let me walk you through the receipts, because this is the part that the stans really do not want to sit with. So let me take you into the cultural layer of this, because this is where the story stops being about two women and starts being about how the entire New York hip-hop and boxing community is reading this in real time. Yesterday, Clarissa Shields sat down for an interview with Ariel Helwani, one of the biggest combat sports journalists on the planet. And during that interview, Ariel, being the generous host that he is, decided to name-check some of the greatest female rappers alive to gas Clarissa up after a freestyle that, to put it politely, was not the strongest performance of her career. Ariel starts naming names. Lil' Kim, Foxy Brown, Eve. And Clarissa is glowing, she is smiling, she is soaking up the praise, she is nodding along, saying, I love Lil' Kim, I love Foxy Brown, I love Eve. Then Ariel keeps going. Cardi B, Megan Thee Stallion, Glorilla, Latto, Remy Ma. Do you like Remy? And in that moment, the entire room changes temperature. The smile falls off Clarissa Shields' face like somebody unplugged it. And she says, I do not know many of her songs, so I cannot say that. And then, watch this, Ariel, being a professional who reads a room, immediately backs up. My bad, I think I went too far, I think I went too far. And Clarissa doubles down on the awkwardness with her own sorry, my bad. That exchange right there tells you everything you need to know about the internal cost of every soft girl caption she posts. Because a woman who genuinely does not care, genuinely does not think about, genuinely is not affected by Remy Ma does not need her interview host to apologize for saying the name. A woman who is truly unbothered hears the name Remy Ma, shrugs, says yeah she is dope, and keeps it moving. That is the reaction of somebody who has already processed the situation. What Clarissa gave in that interview was the reaction of somebody who has not processed anything, who is still in the middle of processing it, and who is now walking around trying to convince the internet she is on the other side of it while every micro-expression says otherwise. The second piece of cultural evidence is what Remy Ma herself has been saying and rapping. Because this is not a one-sided situation. Remy has responded, and she has responded with the exact tone of a woman who is completely unbothered because she does not have to be bothered. There is a bar Remy has out right now. I know I am on these mood boards. Why the EFF are you lying? And that bar is not a general shot at the industry. That is a very specific shot at a very specific person who keeps ending up dressed like her, styled like her, colored like her. When Remy Ma says, I know I am on the mood board, she is telling the culture that she is aware of the pattern too. This is not just internet detectives connecting dots. The woman being copied is publicly acknowledging that she is being copied. That is a different level of receipt. The third piece of cultural evidence is the vocabulary shift in Clarissa Shields' own speech. Recent clips have circulated where Clarissa is speaking with a noticeably heavier New York accent than she has ever spoken with in her entire public career. Clarissa Shields is from Flint, Michigan. That is her home. That is her identity. That is where the champion was forged. And yet in recent videos she is turning up the New York on her vowels. She is saying things that sound like they are lifted directly out of a Bronx cadence, and she is opening one of her recent posts with the phrase, watch how you talk to me, which anybody who has followed Remy Ma's discography knows is one of her signature opening lines from one of her songs. Watch how you talk to me. That is not a phrase Clarissa Shields grew up saying in Flint. That is a phrase that comes from a specific Bronx rapper's specific verse. And when it starts showing up in a Michigan boxer's Instagram captions, we are past the point of denying what is happening. The fourth piece of cultural evidence is how the fanbase is reading this in real time. Go into the comment sections of any of Clarissa Shields' recent posts and count how many people are showing up to make Remy Ma references. Count how many people are showing up to say she is copying. She is single white female ing this. She is stalking the aesthetic. The audience has been calling this out for months, and the more the audience calls it out, the more Clarissa doubles down. Which is where the psychology of this gets truly interesting. Because a person who is doing this accidentally would stop as soon as the culture pointed it out. A person who is doing this deliberately keeps doing it and then posts a smug little quote tweet about how she is living rent-free in everybody's head. And I know somebody is going to tell me right now that Clarissa is just influenced by a rapper she likes, that this is admiration, and I hear that argument. But the counterpoint I would offer is this. You cannot claim you do not know somebody's music while simultaneously quoting their radio interview in your captions. You cannot say I do not know many of her songs, and then use her signature opening bar as your caption on a different post. Those two things cannot both be true. And when a public figure asks you to believe two things that cannot both be true, that is the exact moment you are supposed to stop believing them. And that is the exact gear shift I want to make right now, because the story about copying an outfit is small, but the story about what this pattern reveals about the actual dynamics between Clarissa, Papoose, and the whole machine around them is a much bigger story, and it is time we had the real conversation about that. Now let me pivot, because up until this point I have been talking to you about aesthetics and captions and comment sections, and all of that is real, but it is not the deepest layer of this story. The deepest layer of the story is what this pattern reveals about the industry structure Clarissa Shields is currently sitting inside of, the promotional machinery around her fight career, and the way this entire Papoose situation has been engineered from the inside. And I want to walk you through this in 3 connected pieces, because when you see all 3 together, the picture becomes undeniable. The first piece is the promotional economy of women's boxing. Women's boxing does not have the same casual audience as men's boxing. It does not have the same automatic pay-per-view infrastructure. It does not have the same organic buzz cycle, which means every fighter in women's boxing, no matter how decorated, has to manufacture cultural relevance in the weeks leading up to a fight, or the fight does not sell. Clarissa Shields is currently in the middle of a training camp for a fight that reports suggest is not moving tickets at the pace her team wants. And what is the single most reliable engine for cultural relevance in Black entertainment media right now? Hip-hop drama. Female rap drama specifically. So when a champion boxer with a fight to sell suddenly develops a public entanglement with a rapper whose ex-wife is one of the most beloved female rappers in New York, the cynical reading of that situation is not that Clarissa fell in love. The cynical reading is that Clarissa found a promotional lane, and every single caption that borrows Remy Ma's language, every single outfit that mirrors Remy Ma's wardrobe, every single hair color that echoes Remy Ma's dye job is a promotional weapon being fired in a marketing campaign that has nothing to do with boxing and everything to do with keeping her name inside a rap conversation that generates infinitely more clicks than her sport does on its own. That is systemic angle number 1, and it is the least flattering possible reading of this behavior, but it is also the reading that best explains the timing. Systemic angle number 2 is the relationship between Clarissa Shields and Papoose as a marketing arrangement. Both of them are reportedly signed to overlapping music infrastructure. Both of them are trying to build brands that extend beyond their original lanes. Papoose is a lyricist who has spent his entire career being respected by rap purists and largely ignored by the mainstream. Clarissa Shields is a boxer trying to become a rapper on the side. What happens when you pair a technically respected but commercially quiet rapper with a technically dominant but commercially quiet boxer? On paper, you get exactly what we are watching, a couple that generates more headlines together than either of them generates apart. And the tell in this arrangement, the thing that makes the whole thing feel less like a romance and more like a partnership, is the fact that Papoose has not put Clarissa on a single meaningful track. If your girlfriend is trying to become a rapper, and you are a rapper, and you are both signed to overlapping infrastructure, and you have a real relationship, you get on a song together. You do the joint single. You do the couple record. That is what real couples in music do. Papoose has done that with Remy Ma across their entire history, the joint records, the joint interviews, the joint performances. With Clarissa, that structure is missing. Reportedly, he has hopped on tracks with other female artists, but not with the woman he is publicly presenting as his partner. Which tells you that behind closed doors, Papoose knows exactly what Clarissa's musical output sounds like, and he is protecting his own catalog from being attached to it. That is not a partner move. That is a business move. And when you look at their relationship through the lens of business rather than romance, every strange thing about it suddenly makes sense. Systemic angle number 3 is the media ecosystem itself. Look at who is booking Clarissa Shields for the biggest press cycles of her fight promotion. Look at who is amplifying her freestyles. Look at who is framing her as the next great female rap voice moving over Lil' Kim and Foxy Brown when the freestyle in question is, by any honest evaluation, a struggle. Ariel Helwani is a legendary combat sports journalist, but even he had to walk back the framing when Remy Ma's name entered the chat because the framing itself was manufactured. The soup up, the gassing, the move over legends framing, that is not organic media coverage, that is coordinated media coverage designed to create the appearance of a rap arrival that the actual musical output cannot support on its own. And when the appearance of relevance is manufactured this aggressively, it tells you exactly how much real cultural relevance is not there. Real artists do not need to be gassed by combat sports journalists to feel like real artists. Real artists have the receipts of the music itself doing the work. Clarissa Shields does not have that. What she has is a media machine that keeps trying to build a rap career on top of a boxing career on top of a relationship with a rapper on top of an aesthetic borrowed from that rapper's ex-wife. And every one of those layers is propping up the layer beneath it, which means if any single layer collapses, the entire structure collapses. That is why the copying has to keep escalating. That is why every time the culture catches her, she has to double down instead of stepping back. Because the moment she stops borrowing from Remy Ma's aesthetic, she has to stand on her own aesthetic, and the machinery has not been building an aesthetic for her, it has been borrowing one. And here is the truth bomb that ties all of this together, the reveal that this entire video has been building toward, the thing that I want you to sit with for the next few minutes, because it is going to reframe everything you thought you understood about this triangle. The reason Clarissa Shields keeps copying Remy Ma is not because she admires Remy Ma. The reason Clarissa Shields keeps copying Remy Ma is because Papoose has never truly moved on from Remy Ma, and Clarissa knows it. And the only way she can hold his attention is by becoming a closer and closer approximation of the woman he actually still wants. That is the reveal. That is the thing nobody is saying out loud. Every hairstyle she copies, every outfit she mirrors, every phrase she borrows, every horseback ride she reenacts, every pink fur she wears, those are not homages to a rapper she secretly admires. Those are attempts to hold the interest of a man whose emotional center of gravity is still tattooed on his own arm. Because here is the reality. You cannot be tattooed on somebody's body. You cannot have been publicly documented on a reality show with them for years. You cannot have built a marriage and a family and a musical partnership with somebody, and then simply erase all of that because a new woman shows up. The tattoo does not come off. The reality show episodes do not disappear off streaming. The joint records do not unrecord themselves. Everything Papoose is with Remy Ma is permanent in a way that nothing Papoose is with Clarissa Shields can ever be. And on some level, Clarissa Shields understands that. Which is why the copying is not a bug in the relationship, it is the feature. It is the survival mechanism. It is the only tool she has to keep a man who has already given his whole public identity to another woman engaged with the woman who came second. And the tragic part of this reveal, the part that turns this from gossip into something that actually deserves the word tragedy, is that it cannot work. It has never worked in the entire history of romantic relationships. You cannot hold a man by pretending to be his ex. If you have to pretend to be his ex, he does not want you, he wants her, and he is settling for the closest imitation he can find. Which means every soft girl caption, every borrowed line, every pink fur, every horseback photo is not evidence of Clarissa Shields winning. It is evidence of Clarissa Shields losing in the most humiliating way possible by trying to become the woman she supposedly replaced. And this is why the culture has been so fixated on this story. Not because we are all just petty, not because we are all just gossip fans, but because on some level everybody watching this understands what they are watching. They are watching a woman with a legitimate championship resume voluntarily surrender her own identity in exchange for the temporary attention of a man who has already given his real self to somebody else. That is the truth bomb. That is what this entire video has been building toward. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Every future post, every future caption, every future outfit is going to hit different from here forward because you are no longer looking at a champion expressing herself. You are looking at a woman auditioning for a role that was already permanently cast. And this is exactly why Remy Ma looks the way she looks right now. This is why she showed up to the Angie Martinez interview glowing, laughing, doing 360 twirls in a floral romper, talking about Earl Grey tea and glitter under her skin. This is why she is talking about her new album with more excitement than she has shown in years. This is why she has dancers, she has choreography, she has a tour on her bucket list, she has an entire soft girl era rolled out with all the production value of a woman who is genuinely at peace with where her life is right now. The person with real integrity always ends up winning the long game, and Remy Ma is the case study for that principle in this exact story. She did the marriage, she did the reality show, she did the joint records, she did the ride or die decade, and when it was time to close that chapter, she closed it and walked into the next one with her head up and her career intact. She did not have to copy anybody. She did not have to borrow anybody's aesthetic. She did not have to piggyback on anybody's promotional cycle. She walked into Angie Martinez's studio with her own language, her own vision, her own era, and the industry immediately treated it like news because it was news. That is what happens when you have real cultural equity. You do not have to manufacture a moment. The moment comes to you. And this is the contrast one-liner I want to leave you with. One woman is walking into radio interviews declaring her own era, and the other woman is walking into caption boxes trying to borrow it 3 days later. That is the whole story in one sentence. One person's identity is generating culture. The other person's identity is chasing it. And the discipline, the consistency, the refusal to react, that is what has kept Remy Ma at the top of the respect ladder for the entire length of this saga. She has not gone on rants. She has not done desperation press. She has not manufactured beef. She has dropped one bar on the mood board, done one interview with Angie, worn one floral romper, and the culture has done the rest of the work for her. That is what winning looks like when you actually have the receipts. Everything is going to be fine on Remy's side. Everything is exactly where it should be. And every attempt to shrink her by copying her only makes her position more secure, because every copy is an acknowledgement that the original is the one everybody actually wants. And this is only the start of where the story is going. Because between now and Clarissa Shields' next fight, there is going to be another press cycle, there is going to be another interview, there is going to be another photo shoot, and I am telling you right now, watch what she wears, watch what she captions. Watch what phrases start showing up. Because if this pattern holds, and there is no reason to think it will not, we are going to see at least 2 more incidents that mirror something Remy Ma does or says between now and fight night. And on top of that, Remy Ma's new album is on the way, and everything she has previewed suggests that album is going to have bars on it that make this whole soft girl caption look like a warm-up. When that album drops, we are going to be back here talking about specific lines and specific references, and I want you subscribed and ready when that happens because I promise you the breakdown is going to be worth every minute you spend in it. Hit that subscribe button, turn the notifications on, drop your thoughts about this soft girl copy in the comments because I read every single one of them and the best ones make it into the next video. And speaking of the next video, if you thought this was the deepest angle on this whole saga, wait until you see the one I have coming next. Because I have been putting together a full timeline breakdown of exactly why Papoose has never gotten on a track with Clarissa Shields despite being signed to the same infrastructure, and what one specific industry source has reportedly said about the real reason that collaboration keeps getting delayed. That video is going to name names, it is going to walk through the paperwork, and it is going to answer the question that this triangle has been dancing around for 2 years. Is Papoose actually invested in Clarissa Shields as an artist? Or is he running out the clock? Click that next video. Do not go anywhere. We are just getting started. We unpacked